Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving right into some fascinating source material today that literally rewired how I think about the future of space exploration. It's a super provocative argument. The creator makes this incredibly bold claim. If we ever actually want a permanent human presence on Mars, we have to completely, 100%, abandon the traditional government-run space model. Instead, they propose a radically different approach to reaching the red planet. So we're going on a bit of a shared journey today to see why changing our foundational mindset is the absolute crucial first step to becoming an interplanetary species.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The source breaks this new roadmap down into 5 massive paradigm shifts: rethinking space exploration, adopting the Walmart model, shifting from astronauts to pilots, building a self-sustaining economy, and finally, embracing extreme risks.
So, shift number 1. Rethinking space exploration.
The source takes a really unvarnished, hard look at the legacy of government space programs, basically asking us, hey, what happened to the momentum of 1969? The argument here is that while huge government budgets and flag-waving astronauts worked perfectly for the US and Soviet space race back in the day, that model is completely ill-equipped for actual colonization. The creator neutrally but very firmly asserts that massive government agencies have delivered next to nothing for real human expansion over the last half-century. Instead of booming space colonies, we've gotten a whole lot of bureaucratic stagnation. You see, when hundreds of thousands of jobs are tied up in a government program, the goal kind of shifts away from dangerous innovation and turns into job security and endless funding battles. According to the source, this leaves us just tinkering in low Earth orbit with space stations and sending what they call expensive robot toys to Mars. And look, those rovers give us amazing scientific data for sure, but they cost billions and do absolutely nothing to actually prepare a habitat for human pioneers.
So what does this all mean? If hardware isn't our main roadblock, what exactly needs to change? Well, getting to Mars, the source insists, isn't about building a bigger rocket. It's about fundamentally changing how we think. A paradigm shift here means a complete, radical rewiring of our brains when it comes to space travel. If we just keep treating Mars like Apollo 2.0, we are literally never going to get there. We have to change the entire lens.
Moving right along to shift number 2, the Walmart model. Now, this is an unexpected analogy, but it's brilliant. The source frames a Mars mission not as a political victory, but strictly as a business. They contrast the traditional NASA model with the Walmart model. In the traditional setup, programs take on a life of their own. They get funded for political reasons, like keeping manufacturing jobs spread out across different congressional districts, which means these programs basically become immortal, even if the tech is totally outdated or wildly over budget. On the flip side, the source argues a true Mars mission has to operate with the ruthless agility of a retail giant like Walmart. It needs to be intensely goal and customer-oriented, with the customers being the actual space pioneers. Think about it. In the private sector, if Walmart stocks a new brand of cereal and nobody buys it, they don't just keep funding it to protect the cereal maker's feelings, right? They cut it immediately. A successful Mars mission has to do that exact same thing with its rocketry. It has to ruthlessly drop bloated, failed projects to cut costs and focus entirely on safely delivering its customers.
Next up, shift number 3. Pilots, not astronauts.
It's kind of fascinating to think about this next point because we are so used to putting astronauts on this massive pedestal. We view them as elite, pristine scientists and government workers who are honestly pretty disconnected from everyday citizens. The creator argues a true Mars mission will completely shatter that dynamic by using pilots instead. When you are on a grueling 6-month journey through the dark, terrifying void of space, yes, you need a quasi-military structure for pure survival, but you also need profound mutual respect. These pilots won't be seen as distant government figures doing secret science experiments. Instead, they'll be viewed much more like the rugged, gritty ship captains of early maritime exploration. They're equals. They're sharing the exact same cramped quarters and mortal dangers as the pioneers they're ferrying. Their one and only job is keeping everyone alive, and that creates a deep, essential camaraderie rather than a rigid, bureaucratic hierarchy.
Let's move to shift number 4, a self-sustaining economy.
And this brilliantly illustrates the creator's unyielding view on space economics. The whole idea that we can just kindly ask Congress to write endless blank checks for hundreds of billions of dollars to fund a Mars colony, the source calls that a complete fantasy. Relying on the traditional well of taxpayer money is just a doomed strategy that guarantees we stay firmly grounded on Earth. So how on earth do we actually pay for the most expensive journey in human history? The source outlines this alternative financial framework that involves absolutely zero reliance on congressional funding.
The creator notes a very real, politically charged dynamic here on Earth. Government funding for space is fiercely blocked by factions who argue, quite understandably, that those massive funds should really go toward domestic social programs and helping the poor. Neutrally reporting on this, the source suggests that the Mars mission can bypass this earthly political gridlock entirely. How? By creating a fully independent Martian economy. It generates its own wealth. Voluntary pioneers would travel to Mars to do the really hard work, maybe extracting unique resources, inventing new tech under harsh conditions, or building up interplanetary commerce. The source draws a straight line to historical migrations here, arguing this actually offers Earth's disadvantaged a literal new frontier to build incredible personal wealth, funding the colony from within, and totally removing the burden from the earthly taxpayer.
Which brings us to the final and definitely the most intense paradigm shift: embracing extreme risks. Now, it sounds totally counterintuitive to actually want explosions when we're talking about space travel, right? But the source makes such a compelling case here. They argue that government space agencies are trapped in this paralyzing, zero-risk environment. Because you're in a constant battle to justify your political funding, just one high-profile failure can literally set your agency back a decade. But demanding zero mistakes completely stifles true innovation. Conversely, a true Mars mission must dive headfirst into an extreme risk environment. Real scientists and engineers know that explosive mistakes, like those crazy fiery test launches we see all the time from private companies like SpaceX, are absolutely essential. You literally push a prototype until it blows up so you know exactly where the physical limits are. You just can't push the boundaries of human achievement if you're too terrified of losing your funding to ever really test the envelope.
And that naturally brings us to a very heavy, foundational question the source poses to anyone dreaming of a Martian colony. When you completely strip away the safety nets of government oversight and you face the raw, unforgiving brutality of deep space head-on, is the journey to Mars truly worth the extreme mortal risk?
The source answers that with a very stark historical analogy. It's a severe warning. Yes, people will likely die. The creator does not sugarcoat the sheer brutality of frontier exploration for 1 second. They argue that mortal risk has just always been the historical price tag of expanding human horizons. By comparing these future colonists to the pilgrims on the Mayflower, the source reminds us that while half of those original settlers died in that incredibly harsh first year, their massive sacrifice laid the foundation for an entirely new, thriving civilization. Extreme risk, up to and including death, isn't framed as a failure of the mission. It's framed as the expected, grim toll of venturing into the great unknown.
Ultimately, the source leaves us with this sweeping prediction. If we can successfully pull off these 5 massive paradigm shifts, if we can embrace the ruthless agility of the free market, elevate our pilots into true equals, build a self-sustaining economy that ignores earthly gridlock, and accept the absolute mortal risks of deep space, we will unlock a completely new era for mankind. So the question I want to leave you to chew on today is this. As we look up at the night sky, is this radical, market-driven, high-risk paradigm the true key to unlocking our future in the stars? Or are we destined to just remain tethered to the familiar safety of Earth? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking up.